When my mother and younger sister turned their brand new SUV right at our wrought iron gates, their eyes wild with rage, I did the exact thing they least expected. I took my grandfather's old, stiff work gloves, stained with tar and sweat, and threw them with all my might right under their wheels. My mother screamed bloody murder from the car window, spitting mad, accusing me of all deadly sins, betrayal, and flat-out stealing a massive family fortune. At that exact moment, my younger sister Rosalie was putting on a fake crying act in the back seat, wringing her hands dramatically, smudging her expensive mascara across her face to win pity from her fiancé. But the most ironic, sickening, and downright hilarious part about this whole chaotic situation? These people had shown up at our ranch with absolute, ironclad confidence that they were going to walk in and sell the very land where they hadn't driven a single rusty nail in their entire glamorous lives. They had already split the millions of dollars in their shared family group chat, while Grandpa Silas was still breathing, fighting for his life in his bed. Only they left with nothing but shame and screams, because the old man had outsmarted their entire greedy, lying pack 3 years ago, leaving every single one of them looking like absolute fools. The way a tight-lipped old lawyer and I shattered their perfect, meticulously calculated plan right during the official memorial luncheon, right in front of all the neighbors, made everyone present believe in instant karma. These people never saw the end of this brutal legal duel coming. Now, let me tell you the whole story from the very beginning, how revenge, served ice cold, completely demolished their cod-pled, phony lives. I was exactly 25 years old when it hit me with chilling clarity. I no longer had a family. Well, physically, these people very much existed. They lived comfortably in a massive 3-story mansion in the most prestigious suburban neighborhood, dined exclusively at high-end restaurants, were constantly jetting off to resorts, and posted flawless, glossy photos on their social media every single day. But I was never in those perfect family pictures. For the past 7 years, they hadn't uploaded a single post featuring me. My name is Sybil Garrison, and on the evening of my 25th birthday, I was sitting in pitch darkness in a tiny, drab, rented studio apartment on the edge of town, staring blankly at a cheap store-bought cupcake with a single lit candle. The clock read exactly 8 p.m. My phone had been dead silent all day, not a single text, not a short call from my parents. A heavy, hollow resentment was swelling inside me, but I kept trying to excuse them until the very last moment. Finally, the phone screen lit up brightly. It was my mother, Patricia Garrison. With a heart squeezing from anxiety, I quickly picked up, genuinely expecting to hear the usual, if always cold and routine, birthday wishes for my milestone year. But reality, as it always did in our household, turned out to be far uglier, more selfish and cynical. "Sybil, hi!" My mother's voice rang out, high-pitched and artificially excited, cutting through a wall of loud background noise. In the background, I could clearly hear the clinking of crystal glasses, bursts of laughter, applause, and loud party music. "Listen, we definitely can't make it to your place tonight. It's just impossible. And don't drop by for Sunday lunch either. It's absolute chaos here. My head is spinning." "Did something happen?" I asked quietly, my voice flat, feeling everything inside me begin to knot with a sinking feeling. "We have the most amazing, unbelievable news. Our little girl Rosalie is getting married. Can you believe it?" Spencer just popped the question right in the middle of our dinner party. "Oh my God, you should see this ring. 5 carats, completely flawless, custom cut. We're literally opening our 3rd bottle of champagne right now. His whole high society family is here in our living room. We need to start planning a grand engagement party first thing tomorrow morning, booking a 5-star hotel, ordering a designer gown from Paris. Look, you understand, we just don't have time for your little nonsense right now. Oh, happy birthday, by the way, big girl. Anyway, kisses. I have to run back to the guests. Your father is opening the black caviar." The line instantly went dead with a series of cold, indifferent beeps. I was left sitting in total darkness, listening to that monotone, mechanical sound, and at that very second, something deep inside me broke loud and clear, once and for all. For as long as I can remember, our family had a strict, unwritten, ironclad rule that was never questioned. The youngest daughter, Rosalie, was a fragile, tender, special, and incredibly talented girl who needed to be shielded from every gust of wind, have her every whim catered to, and have every family resource poured into her. But the eldest daughter, Sybil is strong. Sybil can handle anything on her own. Sybil doesn't need allowance, she's driven, she can go work as a waitress after school. Sybil doesn't need help paying for a prestigious college. She's smart, she can study textbooks day and night and score a full scholarship herself. Sybil will never get offended and will understand completely if her own birthday is canceled or rescheduled for her younger sister's latest whim or party. For years, I meekly swallowed that bitter resentment, foolishly convincing myself that my parents just had boundless faith in my independence and resilience. But on that celebratory evening, the veil finally dropped. I saw the bitter truth. I had never been a loved daughter. I was merely a convenient, free, powerless accessory, a household function that ran smoothly and demanded absolutely no attention, care, or financial investment. I slowly stood up from my chair, blew out the single candle with one sharp exhale without even touching the cheap cupcake, quickly packed my most essential clothes and documents into an old suitcase, threw it into the back seat of my battered second-hand car, and revved the engine. I didn't have a clear, step-by-step plan for the future, but the name of the only place on this earth where I was never, even in my deepest childhood, forced to earn my right to exist and be loved, burned in my mind. It was the old, secluded ranch of my beloved grandfather Silas, a place called 3 Rivers. Exactly 3 hours of grueling driving down a night highway slick with pouring rain and blinding oncoming headlights separated me from a past I was determined to erase forever. Rising action and micro hooks. I pulled onto the ranch property deep into the night, the pouring rain having turned all the driveways into a soup of thick mud. My sedan got hopelessly stuck in a rut right by the wooden entrance gates. When I stepped out into the dim, flickering beam of the headlights and saw what had become of my grandfather's once wealthy, thriving estate, the breath literally caught in my throat. It was a truly heartbreaking, grim sight. Half of the heavy wooden fence rails were completely rotted out and falling over. The corrugated iron roof of the main indoor arena sagged heavily and leaked. Old junk and broken machinery littered the yard, and a dull, weak, sickly cough from aging, malnourished horses echoed from the dimly lit barn. It was blindingly obvious that the farm was on the brink of total bankruptcy and ruin. Grandpa Silas met me on the creaking porch. He was well into his 70s and had declined significantly over the past few years, thinned out, haggard from relentless physical labor, but his eyes, the only warm, genuine eyes in our entire cold Garrison bloodline, looked at me with the same boundless, unconditional love. He didn't ask any unnecessary questions. He didn't reproach me for staying away so long. He just silently opened the heavy door, poured me a mug of hot herbal tea, wrapped me in a blanket, and silently, attentively, listened to my rambling confession, raw with tears and the pain of betrayal by my parents and sister. The next morning, while a thick white fog still blanketed the endless pastures, Grandpa called me out to the veranda. In his weathered hands, covered in deep, rough calluses, he held old, stiff leather work gloves that had darkened with time and sweat. Gloves that had once belonged to his own father. He slowly extended them toward me, but as I reached out to take them, Grandpa pulled them back just slightly. These gloves, Sybil, have always been passed down in our line from those who know how to sink their teeth into this harsh earth to those who are never afraid of bloody calluses and slave labor, he said in a low, deeply serious voice, staring straight into my soul with his piercing gaze. I won't give them to you just because you're having a hard time, got hurt in the city, and have nowhere else to go. They will only fit you when you truly earn them on this farm. Are you ready to toil here from dawn till dusk until you sweat blood, knowing damn well we have almost no money in our accounts and our debts are mounting? I looked at my clean, soft city palms, then scanned the ruin consuming the barnyard, recalled my mother's cold voice on the phone, and nodded firmly without a shred of doubt. I am ready, Grandpa. Teach me everything. From that very day, my personal, grueling hell and my ultimate mental salvation began. My workday now strictly started at 4 in the morning and ended well past midnight. No exceptions, no favors. I personally hauled massive, heavy bales of hay, the sheer weight of which made my back literally scream in agony by nightfall. I learned to swing a heavy sledgehammer, driving iron spikes into the rotting wooden fence posts, scraping my fingers to raw, bloody calluses. I mucked out stalls every single day, shoveling out tons of filthy manure with my own hands, while simultaneously learning the ins and outs of expensive feed, basic veterinary care, supplements, and the complex maintenance of horse hooves. The raw, exhausting physical pain completely drowned out the agonizing, hollow emptiness and betrayal left behind by my selfish parents. I thought physical labor was the hardest thing I would have to endure on this ranch. But exactly 3 months after my midnight escape, Grandpa unexpectedly brought an old livestock trailer to the farm. Inside was a large mare. Her name was Aurora. Her previous owner, some heartless scumbag from a neighboring county, had simply abandoned the animal in a locked, forgotten barn without food or a drop of water for 3 whole weeks before skipping town. As Grandpa and I slowly unloaded her into the light, tears stung my eyes. She was a walking skeleton, barely standing on her feet, covered in dull, matted, filthy skin. Her gaunt flanks heaved violently, and her half-wild eyes held such primal terror, aggression, and total distrust that it was impossible to even get near her. She lunged in panic against the wooden walls of the stall, wheezing, rearing up, trying to maim anyone who took so much as a single step toward her. Our local vet, after examining her thoroughly from a safe distance, merely shook his head grimly and closed his medical case. "There's almost no chance here, Silas. Her heart is running on fumes, her stomach is completely wrecked from prolonged starvation, and her psyche is shattered. It's cleaner and more humane to put the animal down right now so she doesn't suffer anymore. She won't let anyone near her." But I looked closely into those wild, miserable, pain-filled eyes and suddenly saw myself. Just as abandoned, just as betrayed by the very people who were supposed to care for, love, and protect her, pushed morally to the absolute brink. "No!" I cut in sharply, blocking the entrance to the stall. "We are not putting her down. We are nursing her back to health until her very last breath." Every 2 hours, through the dead of night, my alarm would go off and I would head to the barn to see Aurora. I fed her tiny portions, literally a single handful at a time, of a special, warm, cooked mash mixed with medicine. I spent hours sitting motionless in the far corner of her stall, simply talking to her in a low, monotone, soothing voice, sharing my own pain with her. At first, she backed away, baring her teeth, trying to kick her hooves in my direction, but gradually the ice of distrust began to melt. Exactly a month into our fierce battle, she slowly approached me on her own for the first time and nudged her warm, velvety nose right into my open palm. By saving Aurora, step by step, day by day, I was quietly stitching up the jagged wounds in my own mangled soul. It was then that I finally realized a vital truth. Just because you were once starved, whether physically or emotionally, doesn't mean you have to lie down and die. You can survive and bloom again, out of pure spite for everyone who doubted you. I thought saving Aurora would be our only little victory, but it was just the beginning of a massive turnaround. 2 long years flew by. The old Three Rivers Ranch was now completely unrecognizable. Grandpa and I had pulled off a genuine economic miracle. Every fence along the perimeter stood perfectly straight, painted a crisp, pristine white. The massive indoor arena was fully renovated with brand new equipment. But best of all, I designed and launched an elite private boarding stable for luxury horse breeds right out of our ranch, along with the county's very first rehabilitation center for injured and sick animals. My professional reputation among equestrians spread like wildfire. I passed grueling exams, earning several serious state certifications in hippotherapy and equine behavioral correction. Wealthy clients from the city started lining up. Soon, we had a tight 3-month waiting list. Clean cash started flowing into our account like a river, and I was able to hire my first permanent assistant, a sharp, hard-working local kid, first part-time, then transitioning to a full-time position with a solid wage. Grandpa Silas walked the immaculate grounds every single day, practically beaming with profound grandfatherly pride. He no longer did heavy physical labor, his failing health and weak heart wouldn't allow it, but his wise, invaluable advice guided our entire business forward. I honestly believed I had finally built a fiercely independent, protected, and happy life, and that all my past family nightmares were permanently left behind in the city. But I was brutally, naively mistaken. The filth and greed from my past life caught up with me in the most unexpected and underhanded way. It happened on a regular Thursday evening. I was sitting on the open veranda, filling out our annual tax returns. My old phone, which I had never changed since my midnight flight from home, even though my parents' and sisters' personal numbers had long been locked away in my block list, suddenly buzzed to life. A strange notification popped up from an old family messaging app I hadn't opened in 2 years. It turned out my younger sister Rosalie had created a new group chat for an urgent discussion of some vital family matter, and the app's automated system had accidentally added me based on my old saved ID before the creator could notice and remove me. I was just about to hit the Leave Group button when my eye caught the very first paragraph of a long message from my mother. My fingers froze instantly, and the air left my lungs. Patricia, Mom. Our estate attorney fully confirmed today that the land at Three Rivers is currently valued by appraisers at a minimum of $3.5 million due to the rapid expansion of the city limits and the construction of the new highway. Old Silas is in terrible shape. The doctor says he has a couple of months at most. As soon as he's gone, we are putting the entire ranch up for auction to developers without delay. The money will be split strictly 3 ways, half to your father and me, and the other half to Rosalie and Spencer. Just enough for a down payment on that luxury mansion in Bel Air they found. Rosalie. Oh, Mommy, that is amazing! I'm already picking out furniture for the living room. But what are we going to do about Sybil? She's been stuck out there without leaving for 2 years, messing around with her smelly horses and manure. Is she going to give us trouble in court? Patricia, Mom. Rosalie, sweetie, don't make me laugh. Sybil is a nobody in this situation. She doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. The entire property is registered strictly under Silas's name. She has absolutely 0 rights to that real estate. She's just been working there as free labor, a charity case living out of pity. We'll show up, show her the door the very same day, and she can pack her rags and hit the road. She's our strong girl, tough. She'll survive anywhere. The main thing is for you two to keep your mouths shut and not say a word to her ahead of time, so she doesn't accidentally turn the old man against us and make him change his will in some senile episode. Father. Completely agree with Mom. Keep it locked down. Rosalie needs those millions way more right now. She's starting a young family. We have to maintain status in front of Spencer's relatives. I began shaking so violently that the phone almost slipped from my numb hands. Hot blood rushed to my face, and a deafening, furious ringing filled my ears. They had already buried my grandfather alive. They had cold-bloodedly carved up the estate of a living, loving man who had secretly helped them financially his entire life. And now they were planning to heartlessly throw me out onto the street, completely bulldozing everything I had painstakingly built brick by brick with my own tears, sweat, and blood. Holding my breath, I quickly took screenshots of every single word of that vile conversation from start to finish. My hands shook heavily as I walked down the hallway to my grandfather's bedroom. He was lying quietly in bed, pale but peaceful, slowly flipping through an old family album filled with yellowed photographs. I silently walked over, sat on the edge of the mattress, and handed him the glowing screen of my phone with the screenshots open. Grandpa Silas read the messages for a long time. An incredibly long time. I watched his face intently with fear and saw harsh, rigid, almost stone-like lines form on his old, deeply wrinkled cheeks. His powerful jaw clamped tight. He took a heavy, deep breath, slowly closed his eyes for a few seconds, and when he opened them again, there wasn't a single drop of sadness, hurt, or disappointment. Only the cold, calculated, iron calm of a man who had survived a harsh war in his youth. "Grandpa, they want to completely wipe our ranch off the map. They want to sell every single inch to developers," I whispered, barely audibly, choking back bitter tears. Grandpa slowly propped himself up on his pillows, gripped my trembling hand with unexpected strength, and smiled very gently and reassuringly. "Sybil, my sweet girl, calm down and listen to me. Go to my oak chest of drawers right now. Open the very bottom drawer. Under the false bottom, there is a thick blue folder. Bring it to me." Surprised, I quickly followed his exact instructions. I found the hidden latch, pulled out the heavy folder bound tightly with twine, and handed it to Grandpa. He untied it with his dry fingers and extended a formal, heavy legal document bearing the official seal of our state toward me. "Read it aloud," he commanded shortly and firmly. My eyes raced across the lines of complex legal jargon. My heart completely skipped a beat for a second, then started hammering at a frantic, deafening pace. It was an official, irrevocable deed of absolute transfer of ownership for all the land, all structures, buildings, and the entire active business of Three Rivers Ranch, made out to Sybil Garrison. But the most shocking part, the official registration date was exactly 3 years ago, meaning long before I had ever run away from the city to live here. I stared at Grandpa in utter disbelief, completely unable to trust my own eyes. "Grandpa, but how? Oh my God, why? 3 years ago I was still living in the city, working myself to the bone. We barely even talked back then, just phoned each other once a month." Silas let out a quiet, dry chuckle that immediately turned into a heavy cough. He took a sip of water from a glass and looked at me. "I am an old, experienced wolf, Sybil, and I could see perfectly clearly from a distance what kind of selfish, blind consumers your parents turned out to be. No matter how much money you give a greedy wolf, it's never enough. They'll end up eating the provider. I knew all too well that they slept and dreamed of getting their hands on my ancestors' farm as quickly as possible, and I knew well in advance that your mother would bleed herself white just to destroy your life to feed all the world's luxuries to your spoiled sister Rosalie. I secretly transferred the entire ranch to you in advance, 3 years ago, but I deliberately didn't say a single word to you about it when you arrived. I wanted you to build this home in your own mind first. I wanted you to feel and value every single inch of this harsh earth, so that when the inevitable time came, you would defend this ranch not just as a dry piece of paper from the county court, but as your own child. You have completely earned these grandfatherly gloves, Sybil. The land belongs to you. It has for a very long time." I pressed the heavy document tight against my chest, hot tears of immense relief pouring from my eyes. I wanted to scream with joy, but Grandpa Silas strictly raised his index finger, instantly demanding my full attention. "Now listen to me very carefully, granddaughter. Memorize every word. My health is fading by the day. I can feel that I won't see this autumn here with you, and those city vultures will smell the end soon enough. They will start circling our house. When they arrive, do not drive them off the property under any circumstances. Do not show them this blue folder. Do not argue or fight with them." "But why, Grandpa?" I protested genuinely, cutting him off. "I want to throw these screenshots and this deed right into their lying faces right now. Make them pop with rage." "No," Silas cut me off harshly, his gaze turning to steel. "Let them show their true, rotten hand first. It's always easier to deal with enemies when you can see all their hidden cards and they can't see yours. Let them believe they're the smartest, most cunning people in the room until the very last second. Let them walk right into my trap up to their ears of their own free will. And when they are completely stuck in their own greed in front of everyone, that is exactly when you snap the trap shut beautifully and ruthlessly. Do you understand me, Sybil?" I nodded slowly, wiping my tears. Our secret, sacred pact was made. Exactly 2 months later, Grandpa Silas took a turn for the worse. He practically never left his bed, losing his strength, and our local doctor came by every 2 days. And just as Grandpa had predicted, The vultures instantly caught the scent of easy prey. On one of the most sweltering, suffocating July days, my father's lavish, gleaming black SUV pulled up to the wooden gates of the ranch with a roar. Out stepped Patricia, my father, and Rosalie with her arrogant fiancé, Spencer. They looked less like they were visiting a dying relative and more like they were arriving at an expensive boutique resort. Massive designer sunglasses, crisp white linen suits, expensive watches, and disgusted, sour sneers on their faces at the sight of country dust and flying insects. My mother practically glided into the house, immediately wringing her hands artificially and dabbing completely dry eyes with a lace handkerchief as she walked. "Oh, Silas, our poor, miserable daddy! How can this be? We dropped absolutely all of our important business in the city the second we heard from the doctor that you'd taken a turn. Sybil, why did you keep quiet until the last minute? Why didn't you call us sooner, you selfish girl?" I stood silently by the bedroom door, my arms crossed tightly over my chest, watching this cheap theatrical performance with icy composure. Inside my soul, there wasn't a trace of my old childhood hurt or desire to make excuses, only cold, ringing, and absolute contempt. "Grandpa needs absolute peace and quiet right now, Patricia," I said in a very flat, even, icy voice, deliberately addressing my own mother by her first name. She froze for a second, catching herself, her eyes flashing with an ugly, vicious glare from behind her sunglasses, but she instantly wiped it away, replacing it with her rehearsed mask of deep grief. "How dare you speak to your mother like that, you brat? Whatever, God bless you. You always grew up a thankless and rude girl. We came here to personally care for my father, and to settle a few vital legal formalities along the way. We need to be alone with him immediately." They spent 3 shameless days at our ranch, and those 3 days turned the entire farm into a disgusting, wretched farce. Instead of sitting for hours by the bed of a gravely ill, gasping old man, holding his hand or helping with his medication, these people carried themselves like professional, cynical commercial real estate appraisers. They openly walked the manicured grounds of the ranch with their notebooks and tablets. I personally watched from the barn window as Spencer and my father paced out the boundaries of the land plot, discussing something loudly and aggressively, constantly double-checking cadastral maps on their phones. Rosalie picked her way around the stables, lifting her feet high in disgust, constantly complaining about the unpleasant smell of horses, yet she meticulously grilled my young assistant with intense curiosity. "Exactly how much does it cost to board one elite horse here per month? How many regular clients do you have right now? What is the net income of this stable?" But no one exerted themselves quite like my mother, Patricia. She actively tried to covertly search the entire house while I was occupied out in the arena. Every time I unexpectedly walked into the living room, office, or kitchen, I caught her rifling through cabinets, dressers, and Grandpa's personal drawers. It was clear as day. She was frantically hunting for an official will or old deeds of ownership. By the end of the second day, my mother's patience snapped completely. She unceremoniously marched into Silas's room at the exact moment I was carefully changing his medical IV. "Papa," she began sweetly, her voice dripping with artificial warmth as she sat on the very edge of his mattress, completely ignoring my presence. "We've been thinking as a family. Times are very unstable, criminal right now. Anything could happen out in this wilderness. Don't you think we need to double-check right away that all your land documents are in perfect order? You know, titles, updated deeds from the state land registry. Where exactly do you keep them right now, Daddy? Maybe you could hand them over to me right now for safekeeping in the city? We have an excellent secured vault at the bank. It'll be much safer for all of us." Grandpa Silas slowly, with effort, turned his gray head toward her. A barely perceptible, faint, yet incredibly triumphant smirk played on his pale lips. He first shifted his wise gaze to me, giving a quick wink, then looked back at my frozen mother. "Documents?" he asked hoarsely, struggling for words. "Patricia, I am an old, dying, sick man. My mind doesn't follow these matters very well anymore. Sybil has already been handling all the business, bank accounts, taxes, and paperwork around here for a long time. Any questions about the ranch? Take them strictly to her. I have put absolutely everything into her hands." My mother's face twisted violently at those words. Her manicured, heavily made-up face briefly contorted into a mask of raw fury, but she reined herself in with a massive effort, exhaling sharply and angrily through her nose. "Papa, but Sybil is just a stupid, inexperienced girl. She doesn't know the first thing about big, million-dollar transactions, business, or legal intricacies. How can you trust her with such serious matters? We are your direct, lawful family. I am your only daughter." "Sybil is the sole and absolute owner of this place," Grandpa said with surprising strength, his voice loud and clear, and for a split second, his failing voice cracked with his old, commanding, authoritative power. "All discussions go through her. Now leave. I want to sleep." Patricia flew out of the room like a rocket, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. She was in a wild, unspeakable rage. Her flawless plan to sweetly manipulate the location of the papers out of him had crashed and burned. Time and time again, she was being rigidly directed to the eldest daughter, whom she herself had shamefully discarded 2 years ago, casting her out of her life. That very night, Grandpa Silas passed away peacefully in his sleep. He died with an absolutely serene expression on his face, knowing full well that his primary duty on this earth was fulfilled, and the hidden trap for the city vultures was fully set and ready to spring at any moment. Following Grandpa's funeral, which my parents tried to keep as brief, modest, and out of the local news as possible to save money, Patricia decided it was time for her grand finale. The day after the burial, she pompously announced to me in the kitchen, using her best lady-of-the-house tone, that we needed to gather everyone on the veranda of the main house immediately to fairly, and as a family, finally discuss the affairs of the late Silas and definitively resolve the matter of his lawful inheritance. To her surprise, I agreed absolutely calmly and complacently, without even attempting to argue. "Fine," I said quietly. 2 p.m. on the main veranda. I'll prepare a traditional memorial luncheon for everyone." My mother gave a satisfied, arrogant nod, genuinely believing that I had finally broken down, realized my pathetic position, and was ready to blindly submit to the will of my elders. But in her sheer ignorance, she had no clue that early that morning, I had secretly made a few very important phone calls. By 2 p.m., our veranda at Three Rivers Ranch was unusually crowded and noisy. In addition to my entire city family, my mother, father, a dolled-up Rosalie, and her high and mighty fiancé, Spencer, our closest neighboring farmers were sitting around the long, heavy wooden table, including Uncle Hank, along with several very wealthy and influential clients from our boarding stable. And at the far edge of the veranda, sitting quietly in the shade, was an older, sharp-looking man in a gray, three-piece business suit, holding a massive leather briefcase. It was Mr. Harlan, Grandpa Silas's personal attorney, and by extension, a good, loyal friend of mine. When Patricia glided out onto the veranda in her expensive, fashionable morning dress and saw the crowd of outsiders, her perfectly shaped eyebrows shot up in genuine outrage, and her face broke out in ugly red blotches. "Sybil, what on earth is this? What is the meaning of this?" she demanded sharply and shrilly, not even caring that guests were present. "I thought I made it perfectly clear that this was a private family meeting. Why did you invite these outsiders, these country hicks and farmers? We are about to have a highly serious, confidential conversation about high-end real estate and millions of dollars. Tell them to leave immediately." I calmly, with a stone face, poured hot tea into the cups and slowly took my seat at the head of the table, the exact commanding spot where Grandpa had sat for decades. "These people are not outsiders, Patricia," I answered in a very level, icy, and confident voice, staring her dead in the eyes. "These are Grandpa Silas's closest friends, and the very people whose support and money keep this ranch alive, breathing, and thriving. They have every legal right to be at his memorial and hear absolutely everything that is about to be said here. Let's get straight to the point. You wanted to talk about Grandpa's inheritance? Speak. We are all listening to you carefully." My mother scoffed snobbishly. adjusted her expensive gold watch with a nervous flick of her wrist, and abruptly stood up, leaning both hands heavily on the wooden table. She was determined to take total control from the first second and morally crush me with her authority in front of this crowd. Fine, since you've turned a private family matter into such a cheap circus sideshow, let your farmers listen. I have nothing to hide, she began, projecting her voice across the entire veranda, enunciating every word. The situation is incredibly simple and obvious for everyone here. Our dear father and grandfather Silas has, unfortunately, left us. We, as his direct heirs, have absolutely no intention of keeping this old ranch in such a rundown state, or wasting our valuable energy on this remote, muddy wasteland. The land of Three Rivers will be sold to a major city developer for full commercial zoning in the shortest time frame possible. A preliminary agreement has already been completely locked down thanks to Spencer's connections. The proceeds from the sale, which, mind you, come out to around $3.5 million, will be split strictly and fairly between myself, my husband, and our youngest daughter Rosalie, who desperately needs to build her new family nest in an elite neighborhood. Our neighbors around the table began whispering angrily and loudly at those words. Someone fiercely slapped their knee, and Uncle Hank shook his head in pure disgust. Rosalie, meanwhile, smiled triumphantly from ear to ear, shooting me a devastating, arrogant look. "What about Sybil?" Uncle Hank barked angrily from his seat, cutting my mother off. "She's been breaking her back out here for 2 years straight without a day off, pulling this ranch out of ruins and debt entirely on her own. Are you just going to throw her out on the street without a single diamond like a stray dog?" My mother looked in my direction with condescending, deep-fake pity and let out a theatrical sigh. Sybil. Well, what about Sybil? Of course, we deeply appreciate that she got to breathe some fresh country air out here for 2 years and helped an old, sick man around the house for free. We aren't monsters. We'll pay her a small cash compensation out of our own pockets. Say $10,000. That will be more than enough to get her started, rent a modest little apartment on the edge of town, and finally find herself a normal, respectable job. She's our strong girl, tough, she won't get lost. That is all, ladies and gentlemen. The matter is completely closed. We will sign the legal documents back in the city, and our land surveyors will be out here tomorrow morning to measure the plots. She flashed another victorious smile and confidently reached for her expensive designer handbag, genuinely believing she had won this match in a clean sweep. A heavy, suffocating graveyard silence fell over the veranda. Every farmer and client present looked at me with anxiety and sympathy, waiting for my reaction. And at that exact, highly dramatic moment, I let out a quiet, genuine, and incredibly hearty laugh. My laughter cut through the silence like a sharp, stinging slap across a funeral parlor. My mother froze instantly, her heavily made-up face contorting with pure, venomous rage. "Is this funny to you, Sybil? Do you even have a single clue what is happening right now inside that stupid head of yours? You have been left with absolutely nothing because of your foolish stubbornness and pride. If I were you, I would be crying and begging for forgiveness." I instantly stopped smiling. My gaze turned to ice. I rose slowly to my full height at the head of the table, and my entire demeanor radiated such an ironclad, crushing confidence that my mother involuntarily took a timid step back, turning pale. "No, Patricia. You and your little gang are the ones who aren't going to find anything funny right now," I said quietly, yet so distinctly that every word hit the veranda like a heavy blacksmith's hammer. "Do you know what your absolute biggest, most fatal problem in life is? You have always considered yourself the center of the universe and the smartest woman alive, while viewing everyone around you as mere dirt and free utilities under your feet. Did you honestly think Grandpa Silas was a blind old fool who didn't see or understand what was happening in his own family? Did you really think I didn't already know about your secret family group chat, where you were cynically dividing up those $3.5 million while he was still alive?" With a sharp movement, I pulled out my phone and slammed it right onto the middle of the table, displaying the screenshots of their vile conversation across the entire screen. My father, catching sight of the text, turned white as a sheet and hurriedly cast his eyes to the floor. Rosalie gasped in terror, clapping her hand over her mouth and looking fearfully at her fiancé. "You didn't come to this ranch to mourn a beloved father and grandfather," I continued, taking a slow, menacing step forward, straight toward my stunned mother. "You came here like starving, merciless vultures to tear a fat piece of land out of a dying man's hands as fast as you could. But you are way too late, Mother. You are exactly 3 damn years too late." I turned my head toward the shadow. "Mr. Harlan, if you please, read the official legal documents to these city folks." The grandfather's personal attorney took his time rising from his chair, calmly unlocked his leather briefcase, and pulled out that very same thick blue folder with gold embossing. He adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and swept a strict, triumphant gaze over everyone sitting at the table. "Mr. and Mrs. Garrison," the lawyer stated calmly and dryly, straighting his tie, "I am legally obligated to officially inform you that all real estate, land, pastures, stables, residential buildings, current bank accounts, and the registered trademark of Three Rivers Ranch are henceforth not included, and legally cannot be included, in the estate of the late Silas Garrison." "What kind of absolute garbage and nonsense are you spouting right now?" Patricia suddenly screeched at the top of her lungs, instantly losing every shred of her aristocratic polish and high society manners. "I am his only biological daughter and direct primary heir. Every single centimeter of this land belongs to him." "The land did belong to him," Mr. Harlan corrected her politely, a faint smile on his lips. "But exactly 3 years ago, Mr. Silas Garrison personally executed an official, irrevocable deed of absolute gift inter vivos, meaning a lifetime gift, transferring 100% of his movable and immovable property at Three Rivers to his eldest granddaughter, Sybil Garrison. This document was properly registered with the State Land Department, and all fees and taxes have been paid in full. Here is an official certified copy of the deed, bearing the state's gold seal." With a dry, loud thud, the attorney dropped the heavy paper right under my frozen mother's nose. Patricia snatched the document with trembling, manicured hands, her long nails scraping the paper. Her eyes began darting frantically, crazily across the lines, instantly locking onto the precise legal phrasing. "Freely and unconditionally transfers into the sole, undivided, and unreserved ownership of Sybil Garrison." She reread the paragraph over and over, and right before my eyes, her face turned from a flush red to a deathly white, before settling into a decayed, sickly gray hue. "No! No! This is a blatant forgery! This is a fake, cooked up on a kitchen counter!" She screamed across the entire farm, her voice cracking into a wild ultrasound. She furiously threw the document right back into the older lawyer's face. "The old man was completely incompetent when he signed this. He was senile. This parasite Sybil just drugged him with some pills. She brainwashed him. She blatantly stole our rightful inheritance. My inheritance." "Watch your mouth and mind your accusations, Mrs. Garrison," Mr. Harlan countered instantly, his voice dropping to a freezing register without him flinching an inch. "Exactly 3 years ago, Silas Garrison underwent a full, independent medical and psychiatric evaluation in my presence, right before signing this deed. He did this deliberately, specifically anticipating this exact type of legal theater from you. I have a full video recording of the entire signing process and the official written conclusions of 3 of the state's chief physicians locked away in my safe. Everything is completely legal and transparent. Three Rivers Ranch belongs 100% to Sybil Garrison from here on out, and as of this moment, you 3 have absolutely no legal right to stand on this private property without her express, personal permission." A wild, joyous roar erupted across the veranda at those words. Our neighboring farmers, led by Uncle Hank, began clapping loudly, stomping their boots, and laughing out loud at the drawn, terrified faces of my relatives. Uncle Hank shouted across the entire yard, "Way to go, Sybil! Put those city freeloaders right in their place! There is justice in this world after all." At that exact peak moment, my younger sister Rosalie went into her usual, decades-rehearsed, full-blown hysterical fit. It had finally registered in her selfish brain that her luxury mansion in Bel Air had just vanished into thin air forever, along with all the money. "Mom! Do something! We've been robbed!" she sobbed hysterically, dropping her back dramatically against a chair and clutching both hands over her heart. "Oh my God! I can't breathe! No air! My perfect wedding! My future home! Spencer, do something! You're a man!" But at that moment, the exact thing happened that Rosalie had never once expected to see in her entire life. Back in the city, at the very first sign of a whimper or a tantrum from her, the entire family, including me, would panic, running to her with sedatives, pillows, and endless coddling. But now, not a single soul in attendance even budged. Her fiancé, Spencer, looked down at her with deep, cold annoyance and disgust. He had originally planned on marrying the wealthy heiress to a massive $3 million ranch, not a broke suburban nobody with a mountain of credit card debt. The neighboring farmers merely grimaced in disgust and shook their heads at this cheap, fake drama. Her ultimate trump card and crisis no longer worked. The spell was completely broken. My mother, breathing heavily and raggedly from pure fury, stepped up right into my face, her skin practically touching mine. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her lips trembled violently. You wretched, calculating snake. You planned this whole thing from the start. You tore your own biological family apart with your own hands. How are you even going to live with this sin on your soul? We raised you, you ungrateful brat. We gave you absolutely everything in this life." I looked her dead in the eye, absolutely calm, steady, without a single shred of my old childhood fear, guilt, or anger. There was nothing left in my gaze for her but a freezing emptiness. "You gave me everything?" I asked back, my voice very quiet but heavy with weight. "You completely forgot and ignored my 25th milestone birthday for yet another one of Rosalie's parties. For years, you cruelly hammered it into me that I was strong and had to handle everything myself while you coddled and financed her every whim. You cold-bloodedly erased me from your codpoled life first, and then you decided to come out here and erase me from this place, the one place on earth where I was genuinely loved and valued for my labor. You didn't come here for a dying grandfather, you came strictly for his millions. But Grandpa Silas turned out to be 100 times smarter than any of you. He left this sacred ground to the daughter who spent 2 years shedding her tears, sweat, and blood for it, not to the vultures who couldn't wait for his demise in their shared group chat. My father, who had spent this entire time standing silently and cowardly far off to the side, hiding his eyes, suddenly took a tentative, shaky step in my direction. His face looked incredibly aged, broken, and defeated at that moment. "Sybil, sweetheart," he muttered quietly and pathetically, reaching a hesitant hand out toward me. "Look, forgive us, we're fools. We probably went way over the line somewhere in the past, but we are your own flesh and blood. Let's just sit down calmly at the table right now, rewrite everything fresh, work it out like a family. We're one family, Sybil." I looked intently at his outstretched, trembling hand, and a dozen heavy moments from my childhood flashed through my memory. Times when I desperately needed his male protection against my overbearing mother, and he would just silently turn around and walk into another room. Anything to avoid an argument with his tyrannical wife. "No, father," I said very softly, but with absolute finality, shaking my head. "Flesh and blood makes us nothing more than biological relatives, but what makes people a real family is something completely different. A real family consists of the people who show up and stand by you when you're at your absolute lowest, not the vultures who run over with spoons when you start smelling like millions of dollars. As of right now, you are all completely dead to me. You're strangers." I took a deep, clear breath, filling my lungs completely, and with a commanding gesture of my outstretched hand, I pointed straight toward the wooden gates of the ranch. "And now, our memorial gathering is officially over. Patricia, you are going to shut your mouth right now, get into your expensive city car, put your obedient husband inside, along with your crying actress Rosalie and her disappointed fiancé. You are leaving my land this instant, and you will never in your lives, do you hear me? Never dare to dial the number of this ranch again. If I see a single car belonging to any of you within a mile of my gates ever again, Mr. Harlan will file an official restraining order that very same second. Now, get the hell out of my house! My mother wanted to open her mouth again to screech something vile at me before leaving, but Uncle Hank and two of our most massive, heavily built farmers stood up from their chairs in perfect unison and took one wide step forward, crossing their enormous arms over their chests meaningfully. Realizing with chilling clarity that their grand city game was permanently, irreversibly lost in a total train wreck, Patricia furiously ripped her designer bag off the table, gave me one final, scorching look full of pure, unadulterated hatred, and stormed toward the exit of the veranda, tripping over her steps. "Let's go! Let her choke on this smelly manure pile and her horses! Let's see how you talk, you ungrateful wretch, when you're left out here rotting in total isolation!" They slunk out of our yard shamefully, accompanied by the loud, mocking laughter and jeers of all our neighboring farmers. Rosalie, running her black mascara and tears all over her face as she walked, hurried ridiculously behind her mother on her massive stilettos, constantly stubbing her toes on the gravel. Her fiancé Spencer walked a bit further behind, hands shoved in his pockets, not even bothering to offer his bride an arm. Their engagement was practically dissolved right then and there. My father turned around for one brief second right at the car door, looking at me with a very long, profound gaze full of deep regret, pain, and longing, as if saying goodbye forever. But my mother shrieked at him from inside the cabin, "Get in the car right now, you coward!" And he submissively slouched over, climbing into the front passenger seat, choosing the side of the tyrant one last time in his life. The black SUV tore away from the driveway with a wild roar, spinning its wheels in the mud and kicking up a massive cloud of gray dust over the road. At that exact second, I slowly picked up those old leather work gloves of my grandfather's that I had dropped during all the commotion, gripped them tight in my fist, and threw them with everything I had left right after the speeding car, as a supreme, final symbol that I was permanently and completely severing this rotten, toxic family umbilical cord. In that heartbeat, my soul became absolutely clean, light, peaceful, and beautifully free. I no longer had to prove anything to anyone. I was home. I was entirely free. More than 6 months have passed since that day. My former relatives have never once risked showing their faces on the horizon of Three Rivers or sending me a single text message. Mr. Harlan's legal barrier worked flawlessly. From a few rare rumors passed down by old city acquaintances, I know that their perfect, glossy life has cracked wide open. Rosalie and Spencer's lavish wedding was split wide open and canceled a week after they got back from the ranch. His high society family quickly caught on that the Garrisons didn't actually have those millions they were banking on, and Spencer simply walked away from my sister. My parents are currently drowning in massive credit card debts that they racked up in total confidence that they would quickly liquidate Grandpa's land. They have been forced to put their massive 3-story mansion up for sale just to keep from going bankrupt, and my father has apparently finally filed for divorce from my mother after 30 years of marriage. Meanwhile, our Three Rivers Ranch is thriving like never before. We expanded the boarding stable, hired 2 more permanent hands, and the mare Aurora has now become the true symbol of our entire center. She is completely healthy, affectionate, and actively helps special needs children go through rehabilitation. My grandfather's gloves are always with me now, serving as a constant reminder that true strength can't be bought for millions of dollars. It can only be earned through your own hard labor. So, whose side are you taking in this story? Let me know in the comments. I'm dying to read your thoughts. And if you want to be the first to see other perfect facades crumble, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Your support helps karma strike more often. See you in the next drama.